What's going on, guys? Writing in Style here. Welcome to the channel and my first fully edited and uploaded video. I figured I'd start this off with a bang. Starting off my childhood game with the challenge run I don't see quite very often, especially to this extent. Today I'm playing Final Fantasy X, but not in a normal way. I'm going to be doing a magic only run. The rules aren't too complex, and I'll run through them on screen right now while the intro plays. First and foremost, and most obviously, I can't use the attack command. Any action I do has to have no physical contact with the fiend, monster, or boss other than it attacking me. I'm not allowed to use overdrives of any kind, including Lulu's Fury Overdrive. I can't use the item or use commands, even though some could argue that some of the elemental items would qualify in here. I can't use the summon command other than the mandatory Aeon fights. In addition to the mandatory fights, if the Aeon has any non-physical abilities or skills, I must use them, otherwise it only uses the attack command. I can't use the customize button in the party menu. All equipment I obtain must be dropped or bought. I am not allowed to use any no encounter equipment or the booster since I'm playing on the Steam PC version. I am not allowed to escape or flee from any battle. If I game over in the middle of battle, I have to restart from the last save point. Stat nodes in the sphere grid can only be activated if it's in the mage's sphere grid or it's a crossover between two major sections. I am allowed to activate any non-physical ability I run across, such as haste in Titus's grid, even though he's not a mage. I can place stat nodes only in the mage grids, and that does not include the crossovers. I will be using the Farplane editor to enable a permanent sensor and to enable AP sharing for everyone that is currently in the party at some point to save on my own sanity and reduce time
Listen to
grinding.
my story.
And the challenge starts when
This
Titus can unlock
may
Lancet,
be our last chance.
which is already a job in and of itself. So, without further ado, let's get this run started. Alright, and to begin this challenge, we have to decide our name. And after very quick and careful consideration of what I was going to do and forgetting how to operate this text input, because I haven't played this game in forever, I just forget where every button is and I just don't click it, and then I can't find others. We aptly name our character. Very specific.
Magic.
I'm quite proud of that. Anyways, I'll fast forward a bit here, and this is when Sin decides to throw some fiends our way. And with our weak little arms, because, you know, we're not a warrior by any means, we're struggling to fight these things. And Orin decides to give us a sword, which so happens to be from our old man. But of course he'd give us this knowing that we'll never be able to swing this thing right. I mean, like, look at me. I can't even stay stood up. Anyways.
I hope you know how to use it.
I sure don't. I somehow regain consciousness and swim frantically away from the giant bone turtle thing. And I really don't know how I got here. But I managed to get dry, and I'm trying to light a fire, and then I get jumped by another fiend. I don't even know where this man came from. But I just can't catch a break, can I? But since I'm too weak to even know what magic is, I guess I'll just slap it with my sword until this mystery girl shows up to help me finish it off. Mystery girl finally shows up here, and we make a very short work of Click. after this happens. So I just fast forward to the end of it here.
We found some ancient... It's not active now. We're gonna go down there, and then we should be able to... Okay!
Roger.
And now, the challenge really begins. I start out by looking at the sphere grid. I get my bearings here, trying to figure out where I need to go and what I need to get. Definitely trying to get Lancet first. And for whatever reason, I even look at it several times. I don't get cheer. And I don't know why. I don't think it really would have mattered in the future, but I go ahead and decide to move towards Lancet so I can get some kind of non-physical ability as soon as possible. And we head our way to our first battle. And I think at this point I had been playing for a while that I just decided to set the cursor to memory. Unfortunately get ambushed here, but whatever, I guess. And for the meantime, I just used auto battle to get me there, especially to grind for Lancet, because it took so long to do it manually. And eventually I get enough levels to unlock Lancet, so this is when Rikku has to defend and Titus has to only use Lancet because he's no longer allowed attack since he has an ability. And for whatever reason, I think after doing all this, I don't think I did any Lancet tests against the piranhas before I got to this room. So this is the first real fight with it. As you can see, it's not doing much damage, especially considering Titus can usually like 2 or at least 3 shot these things. So this fight takes a very long time. In a lot of the future fights especially, I will try to cut out most of the fight, because some of these take a really long time. If I don't cut it out, I'll at least speed it up. I mean, like you saw that cut, it took forever for this fight. I think whenever I looked it back in editing and counted, it took it a little over 4 minutes for this one fight to be done. Once I finished that piranha fight, I did actually come back to the ship just to get the free heal before I fought Tross. I figured I'd really need it after that piranha fight, and this is a normal fight on the way back to Tross. And you'll see it still takes a little while for it to happen. I think looking back and editing on this one, this fight took just under 2 minutes to do. And it gives you an idea of what my life is about to be for the next little while, because it does not turn out to be good. I go ahead and activate this part of the machine to trigger Tross to spawn so that we can continue the storyline, and I'll let you just see the fight for yourself. We will definitely be grinding here for a bit. Now, with this fight just started, the only thing I really had access to that I knew I could use was Lancet. Didn't have cheer or anything like that, and Rikku had to do nothing but defend, which is fine because throughout all of these attempts, that's all she did anyways. But you can see that Lancet is doing about 13 to 15-ish damage, and honestly, I think a lot of it depends on how much it attacks Titus, because he can slightly heal himself, so if it evened out a little bit, it wouldn't have been nearly as bad. But we went a long time through this fight. It eventually killed Rikku, which left just Titus, and he just cannot deal enough damage and heal fast enough to get this done. I mean, at most we're only healing like 26 points, and when he does tentacles, it's 80 points, and we can't out-heal that. And you can see I cut here, and you can tell that my HP is low, and it's just, there's not enough. And I get him to finally go through his first rotation to move, but you'll see that this move is not good for us. So looking at it, I thought, okay, if we defend, that's maybe half of that. So that's still like 70 to 80 damage. Could be okay in the future. But this first attempt was a miserable fail. So I go back to grinding the piranhas, and my goal right now is for the magic +2 node that's just a couple spaces away from Lancet. I figured maybe the +2 will be enough to give just a bit extra in damage and healing. And then we do go through a couple of fights, I think, before we go back to Tross. And you'll see that its damage for Lancet has gone up to about 18 to 21-ish, so it's a reasonable increase. And I think I just grinded for grenades here just to maybe have something to sell, I'm not entirely sure. I believe when I look back on this footage, this fight took about the same amount of time as the other one that I mentioned. But we come back to Tross. I just have Rikku steal. Again, I don't know why. I should have had her defend. But the Tentacle's coming in, still doing about 80 damage, but the Lancet against him doing about 20. So if we can get 2 in a turn, that's 40 HP. So we'll only lose about 40 if it uses Tentacles. But a lot of it is going to be agility based. And if it uses it a lot on Rikku, then it messes up with the flow, because we kind of need her alive for a while, especially for the pincer attack at some point. But I don't have any way to keep her alive or deal enough damage. Because like you can see here, it's just targeting her, and she's already dead after the cut here. And I keep using Lancet. It does eventually move. After the Nautilus charge, you can see I'm down to 15 HP. He probably smacked me around a few more times, but I honestly can't remember. He does go for just normal swings, and I do get a couple of evasions here and there. And like in this rotation of turns, I can get 2 Lancets off, so I get 40 HP. But then he pulls out Tentacles, and it's too much for Titus to heal with the agility and the damage he does right now. But it's a decent improvement from what we were at in the first one. This attempt also took like about 7.5 minutes, but we start with another attempt on Tross, and I think I have Rikku actually defend everything this time, and I used Jinx with Titus because I had it unlocked, thinking maybe if I lower his luck, it'll lower his accuracy. But I think his luck and accuracy, his luck was so low and his accuracy was so high that I don't think it really mattered. And you can see there with that cut, Riku's already dead. He did the charge. I'm at 37 HP. It's just not enough still. Like even with the Jinx, I didn't really get any dodges to be able to counteract any of that. And then this fight took, I think, just over 5 minutes to do. So like these aren't like short attempts. They take a while. At this point, I'm considering getting cheer. So I go through a decent grind to get enough levels to go back. I ended up using a combination between the times forward booster and cheat engine just to make it quicker, because this took ages even with both of them. So I get cheer thinking maybe I can reduce the damage I take. So I do the same setup pretty much, but I do cheer instead of Jinx, and it actually lowers the damage down to about 35 to 39, I think. And I'm thinking here with good RNG rolls and ATB management, I could maybe pretty well pace the damage. After I do the cheers, I do end up actually doing the jinx as well. But you can see here with that couple of jumps, or with that one jump at least, I'm still at max HP, even though Rikku is almost dead. But I start doing jinxes now, same idea of philosophy, that if I lower his luck, maybe I can get a few more dodges. And it jumps a few more times. Riku's health went down, she's taken another hit. Titus took a hit here at that jump. But so far everybody's still alive, which is good for now. And Rikku, even with defending, only takes like 18 damage, which is better. But with tentacles, it's still like 28, but that's like half of what it was before. So that's like a huge improvement. I am pretty healthy whenever Trost does his first move, and he does his Nautilus charge. And I kind of look here, I think this is when, I don't know, I think I used scanned in order to see his HP. So you can see he was down quite a bit. He uses his charge. I did defend. It's 54 damage for it with cheer. So that's pretty reasonable. If I can get decent ATV rolls, I'll only lose like 12 to 14 HP. So back to the Lancet grind. And I managed to get him to move a second time, and this is the first time I managed to do that. And at this point with the cuts, you can see Titus's HP starting to slowly dwindle. So I'm realizing I can't keep this up for much, especially with Rikku down. But I'm also thinking about if I can do decent ATV management, or if I'm lucky, I could possibly get a Lancet and then defend, which I think I did in the first rotation in this fight. But on this one, it wasn't lucky, so I ended up having to tank the charge. And then I go back to doing Lancet. And eventually, you can see the damage is just really stacking up. But I managed to get him to move a third time, which is amazing, considering this is like the third fight. But at this point, if I can't Lancet and defend, I don't think there's much I can do. And I went straight for the Lancet, but I probably should have defended. And then the charge comes through. And even with the cheers, it still does way too much damage to try to even do anything without defending at some point. This fight, I believe, took about 12.5 minutes to do, which is a long time for just one fight, but I also made so much progress on this fight. So next, I end up deciding, do I want to go towards haste, or maybe like the Black Magic Thunder spell? Because I need some way to do more damage. I did do a trial run of both. I gave Titus the spell with the Farplane editor on both. Whenever I was done, I reset the game before it was done. So in this attempt, I did haste. I did haste, and then I immediately jinxed and cheered the entire 5 times to lower damage and maybe get more evasions. So we'll get to see how that goes in this fight. And then once I'm done with the cheer and the jinx, I just go straight to spamming Lancet and defending with Rikku. Just to do as much damage as I can as quickly as I can, while also reducing the damage I take. due to the agility that Titus has, he's now pretty much able to keep up with any attack that Tross does throw at him, because he just gets so many lance hits in with how much of a priority move it is in the ATB system. And then I do scan here just to get an idea of what his HP is. I managed to get him to move here. Riku's still alive, and Titus is still full health, so I just keep on lane sitting here and defending with Rikku. In hindsight, I should have had Rikku stand by and then defend, because she would have gained 50 HP to mitigate some of that. But I just keep speed up on from here to just kind of shorten the fight and everything. But you can see that Titus has no problems keeping up right now. While we sit here and wait for this stall to play out, which I could have cut, but I'll take this time to do a little shameless promotion. But if you're enjoying the idea of this playthrough, or you're wanting to see more of this playthrough, feel free to like, definitely subscribe. That way you can get notifications of whenever I do upload the next parts of it. But I'll end the selfless promotion there. Also, in hindsight here, I should have done the pincer attack so he doesn't charge anymore, but for whatever reason I didn't do it. And I kind of feel stupid for it now, because Rikku ends up dying here. She could have at least probably lived another turn or two, depending on the RNG. But it's still no big deal. Titus is doing more than enough to keep himself alive. Like, I don't think that the pincer attack would have really mattered at that point. And at this point, I use Cheat Engine to speed it up again on top of the 4 times, because it's just taking forever. I don't even think I counted how long this one took. I just wanted to be done with it, because I've done this fight so many times for so long that I got tired of it. But like, even with the speed ups, you're seeing it. I got him to move again. He charged. My agility's too high, and I can heal too much that he just has no problem at all. And I do eventually end up killing Tross with the trial run with haste. So haste was no big deal. So the next trial run I do is with Thunder, but I do have some doubts about how well it'll work because of the MP usage. Titus doesn't have a lot of MP, so with it costing 4 MP apiece, I was worried about how long it would take. But I do the cheers at least. I don't remember if I do the jinxes, and then I cast Thunder. And this fight didn't go as well as the haste fight did. Considering I think I did the math on it. Considering the damage that Thunder does do times like the 4 or 5 times I get to use it, I think it was only about 300-ish damage. So even at like the 2200 that Tross has, it's not enough to even really make a difference. It's just he still has like 1900 HP or something like that by the time I go through all of my MP. So even with that extra head start, there's not enough damage that Titus can do on his own that requires magic to be able to do this fight. If Rikku had the ability to get some kind of magic ability, whether it be Lancet or a spell or something, this fight would have been completely different, especially considering her MP pool. But in this fight, it's basically the same as the original ones, the first ones, where it's just Titus can't keep up with the damage. He's just not fast enough for it. So eventually I do end up going down and getting killed here, which definitely leads me to we're doing haste. Unfortunately, it takes me forever to get to haste, and you can tell how impatient I was getting because I turned the speed up on here. But it takes forever to get to haste so that I can even do this. Like, I even had the speed ups on and everything, but you'll see. I would say I grinded enough levels to unlock haste naturally, but I don't want to waste tens of hours of my own little bits of free time to unlock it. So I used the Farplane Editor to get it. Wow, look at that, I have haste. Anyways, now we're going on to the actual attempt of Tross. For whatever reason, the audio desynced here. I still can't figure out why, but I did haste, I think, on both me and Rikku. Or maybe no, it was just me. And then just cheered and then doing Lancet. I did haste here, that's what it was. I think I finally figured out if I do haste on Rikku as well, that should give her enough of an ATB advantage when he moves to be able to stand by and then defend with Rikku, because I think her agility is higher than Titus's. I don't remember, to be honest. But it's just a slugfest of Lancet over and over again. Eventually he does move again, and I did the pincer attack this time, so now he can't charge anymore. So from here, it's like, that's it. He's done for. And Rikku actually lived up until, I think, the last 3 Lancets came out. So that was, like, really impressive. I didn't think she would have lived that long. But congratulations to us. The challenge has officially, I'd say, started. Could I have done it this early? Could I have started this early? Yes. Did I realize how bad of an idea that was now? Yes, because I never want to have to do that again, because it just takes so long. But I'll let you sit and watch. This is the last few Lancets that he'll have. After that nightmare had just happened, Titus woke up in the middle of a random body of water next to a beach somewhere. I don't know how I end up in these positions. I really don't. Somehow I'm not drowning, even though I'm choking on water. But I wake up and almost immediately get beamed in the head by a blitzball. Oh no, I do get beamed in the head by a blitzball, and I immediately enact my revenge. Nearly beaming Waka straight in the face. And Waka laughs about his master plan to make it 2-0 in his favor to hit me. And here he is, somehow catches me off guard and shoves me into another body of water and laughs about it.
What's the big idea?
The only thing down here is still just the piranhas. They're no big deal. I mean, I know for sure Titus can take them on his own. And even if he couldn't, Waka's got like double the health that Rikku does. So he can tank quite a bit and remove maybe about half the damage Titus would take as if he was on his own. So we kind of steamroll through this fight. It still takes a while though, just because of the low damage. But this fight's still pretty easy to do.
right.
We get dragged off by our cowlick bro.
Over here.
We're
What's
not
up?
really sure why, because we were
You
about to
remember
enter
the
the
prayer,
village.
right?
And I don't even know why he asks me this. Like, that's such a random question, but I don't. I don't know any
Of
prayers.
course, I'd never prayed before in my life. Not that he would know that.
You must have forgot or something.
I mean, I did
Here,
fight
I'll show
Sin.
you.
Oh, what's a high summoner?
My favorite part of this game is how nobody questions who Titus is in this village.
I
It's
got
such
too
a
close to
small
Sin's,
village.
toxin.
And I feel like everybody knows everybody, like a typical small town, and he just randomly pops up and nobody asks questions. And then, like, he's laying in Waka's bed, and this guy doesn't
You
even
could at least
know
go see
who
how
he
they're
is,
doing.
doesn't even ask a question.
Can't
Everybody
interfere.
knows
It's a
Waka, and
rule.
nobody goes, "Who's that guy
But
with Waka
it's
now?"
been nearly.
It's just, it baffles me every time.
There's already guardians in there. Besides, it's forbidden.
Hey, but what if something happens? What if the summoner dies?
I sit here
Precepts must be obeyed.
and
Like I
proceed
care.
to ignore the religious law of the land, and nobody still questions it. Like, they all gasp like it's the most absurd thing ever, and they don't question it. I get the Rod of Wisdom here for Yuna, just for the
You
sensor and
heathen!
everything, and then I just rush through
away from the
everything because
summoner!
I'm tired of cutscenes and not being able to do something. Like, I want to get this challenge started.
Yuna, be careful.
But it was
But
really
the
my fault.
Rod
to
of
begin
Wisdom
with.
gives her, I believe, some
Oh,
plus percentage to magic, which is going to be really handy considering the run we're doing.
Don't get no ideas. Hey, sleepyhead. Something I want to give you.
Waka gives me
Whoa! You're giving
something I will
this
never
to me?
be able to use.
Yeah, use it well.
I will never be using this, Waka. I hope you know that.
It's an ancient custom. People leaving the island pray here for a safe trip. Chapu didn't pray that day. Said he'd miss his boat.
I definitely decided to pray here because I have no idea what's in store. Because I've never even watched a magic-only playthrough. I mean, I've watched plenty of no sphere grid playthroughs. I've watched Dang's 08's
That should do it.
attack-only playthrough, but I've never seen a magic one. And I stand here prepping myself mentally for the Kamari fight. I waltz into this fight with the same strategy as I did Tross, pretty much, just haste and cheer right off the bat. And then I start lanceting away. I do kind of worry about this fight because Kamari does move pretty quickly and can do a lot of damage, especially with jump. So I'm really hoping the haste and the cheer is enough to mitigate the damage while also receiving enough healing back to be fine. I think I try to alternate between Lancet and Cheer, just to keep my HP up a little bit. And I realize Jump does a bunch of damage. So I think I prioritize Cheer here to make sure I can get my defense up. In case for whenever he jumps again, pretty much. And then once the Cheers are up, I go straight back to Lanceting. And I think it was about here that I realized there was a pattern to Kamari's attack rhythm. For some reason, his first rotation of turns doesn't follow it, but this one, I think I realized does, where he does an attack and then a jump, and he just alternates between them. So I defend here, thinking it might happen, and it does, and then that confirms my suspicions to just do a couple of Lancets and then a defend. I tried to scan him, but I didn't realize he was immune to it, and I didn't have the Farplane editor up to have the permanent sensor yet, so I just continued on Lancetting away. Going through this fight, I realized how close it was. So Titus still wasn't able to keep up with all the damage, especially while defending against the jumps. The jumps just do... I think the jumps ignored the defend status. I think it just went off of your defense. So that's why I was struggling so much with it. But then I came to the conclusion, especially towards the end of it, if I didn't have haste, I probably would have been soft blocked here. And would have had to go back to Tross and farm for haste before it. So no matter what, I would have had to get haste anyways. There was just no way to be able to do this fight without haste, because Titus could not move fast enough to heal. Looking back to voice over a lot of this footage, I realized I could have probably just cut a lot of this fight out, since it's just Lancet and defend over and over again. But I think I can tell at what points I got tired during editing, because other parts of the recordings, I edited them like perfectly good enough that it wouldn't drag on like this one is, or the Tross fights. It does get better. It's just I don't think I thought about it at this moment whenever I did this part, and I was too lazy to fix it, I guess, because I would have had to reshift the entire timeline over in DaVinci Resolve. While this fight keeps on dragging on and coming to a close here soon, you can see what I mean by Titus just is barely keeping up. Like, his HP just keeps going down. But I'm curious to see what suggestions you guys would have for the Tross fight and the Kimahri fight. If there's a way to get around it without getting haste, if there's some hidden mechanic I don't know about, or anything like that. But this was the only thing I could come up with, especially considering Titus's low MP pool. And you can see how close the fight was here. I mean, like, I am dwindling on HP, and then it finally registers and I've done enough damage. And I was actually starting to get worried for the first attempt, but I did just fine, fortunately. So the first real, I wouldn't say real, but the first actual decently large fight is the Dark tutorial fight. Even though it's kind of rigged, I do have to do the Dark attack for the tutorial. Like, there's no option, I can't get around it, I don't think. But after I do the Dark attack, I revert back to the challenge rules. You can see how much better this run is with Lulu, because that is 100 times more damage than Titus was doing, and it's crazy. And I have Yuna now to heal, and I think I have, since I don't have Kimahri yet, I just have Titus Lancet. And it's night and day difference between the kind of damage I can do with Lulu versus Titus right now. And it made me so happy when I finally got her. I was so excited to get her. In this fight, even with if the Dark wasn't on there, I think we would have been fine anyways. There's just 3 of us. So extra HP for it to go through, as long as Lulu stayed alive. And with Lulu and Yuna's high evasion especially, they stayed in the party a lot because of that. Between both of their high magic stats and their high evasion, they are both slow. But they won't get hit physically very often, which was great. So by the time I get to Kilika, I already have a party set out, and it's going to be Kamari, Yuna, and Lulu. Kamari has the 3rd highest magic stat that we can get this early in the game. I think he, out of everybody, is the 3rd highest starting magic stat. I don't think Rikku, I know Arin for sure doesn't get any, and then Rikku I don't think is very high either. But once that team is set together in Kilika, it's amazing how quickly I go through fights compared to what I was doing with the Piranhas with Titus. This was the first actual fight that wasn't scripted in a tutorial, and honestly, it went really good. I mean, there are some resistances with, especially like, I don't remember if it's the bird or the dingo. And I get yelled at until like after Kilika, I think, about tutorial stuff about not hitting that specific creature. But even with those magic resistances right now, Lulu still does enough to be able to do pretty good. It's the dingo here. The bird will go down with 1 spell from Lulu. I think the dingo has to take like 2 or 3 spells before it's finally killed. Yeah, 2 spells, and that was even with the Lancet in there. Titus finishes the dingo off. But I mean, like, even with the magic resistances, it's this early on at least, it's not that bad. The game, in my opinion, doesn't really get difficult until you get to like Jose and Mushroom Rock. That's when it really starts to spike. But until at least we get to Luca, everything is like super easy. That's where like the easiest parts of the No Sphere Grid run are, from what I've seen, and the little bit I have played of one. But we're going to skip ahead to the Sen fight for the Finn here, and honestly, the Sen fight itself isn't that hard. It was actually really easy. I just had to knock it down to just 1 Sen spawn, and then everybody else was magicking or lanceting the Finn itself, and at this point I do get Kamari. So I have Kamari, Titus, and Lulu, I think, attacking the Finn. But you'll see that here in a second. At this point, I had forgotten that I need to cast haste and then lancet the creature in order to get another haste off with Titus, since you can only do 1 at a time. But that's something I do end up picking up and remembering pretty consistently later in later fights or bosses. I have a really hard time deciding what to do here because I still don't really know how to play this fight, because I know I have the Sen spawn underwater after this. So I'm trying to figure out what's best for me to do. And I think I just conserve MP and I don't do haste yet. And especially here, I'm trying to figure out what to do. And I think I finally decided that I just need to take out 2 of the 3 small Sen spawn. That way damage is mitigated with them. I do cast the haste on Kamari here, and I forgot to mention you can see how much of a damage difference it is between him and Titus on the Lancet damage, and it's crazy. But I cast the haste on him, that way he can just haste quicker. I considered doing it with Lulu, but her agility is so low, the haste wouldn't have made too much of a difference, so I think I left her alone and just had Kamari Lancet on haste. I do eventually kill the Finn, and advance to the next fight with the underwater sin spawn. And Waka unfortunately breaks the entire challenge, and it's unavoidable. He uses an item when I said no items. And that animation, I'm actually curious to know what uses that animation, that effect that was on Titus. I want to say it's an Albed potion, but I don't remember what. It's another item in the game, but I don't remember what item it is that gives that effect. If you guys know, that'd be great, because I can't remember what it is, and it bothers me to this day. So going into this fight the first time, my biggest concern was the drain touch that he has, and would I be able to out damage it with cheer and haste. So you can see it coming in. I don't remember if I had cheered all 5 times. I don't think it was yet, but 29 damage isn't a bad start. Another big problem I run into later is the piranhas. If you're not defending, everybody is taking like 30 damage apiece. 30 damage without defending, and then like 60 while... Sorry, reversed. 60 while not defending, and then like 30 while defending. And eventually that damage does stack, and at some point, Waka does die. And whenever Waka dies, Titus ends up having to tank all 4 of those piranha hits, plus the boss himself. I did speed up here to just try to speed it up for everybody and my own sanity and everything. Between all of the chip damage and it doing drain touch, I just didn't have enough to really out damage its heal and out heal my damage, if that makes sense. About here somewhere, I think it's within the next few turns, Waka does end up dying. But even with Waka alive, Titus is having to do everything he can to not die. And like now we're down to just Titus, and he's not got enough HP to do much of nothing. Got that lucky dodge on the drain touch, and a whole bunch of back-to-back lance hits. But at this point, Blender is unavoidable, I believe, even with Dark Attack on. And I think it's one of those... I think you can defend against it. I don't remember if I did, but it was enough to kill Titus. So the first attempt was a loss. And I came to the conclusion that I just am not dealing enough damage, even with haste. And my magic stat for Titus is just too low. So I have to consider finding another means of damage with him. I do go back to grinding. I come to the conclusion that I should just get lance hit for Waka, because then there'll be 2 people healing themselves and 2 people doing a little bit of damage. It won't be a whole bunch, but I do go back to one of the roads outside of Besaid in the boat to get what little experience I can. Fortunately, getting the experience to get Lancet did not take that long. Not as long as it did to get Lancet for Titus and Haste. Those took an absurd amount of time.
Sit back and watch.
I don't think I had AP sharing enabled yet, so I had to make sure to rotate everybody around in order to get experience, which wasn't that important this early on. Like I said, this part of the game is like super easy for No Sphere Grid. You can get up to the Mihan High Road on No Sphere Grid easily. I do finally get the sphere levels needed to get to Lancet, so I'll go ahead and unlock it here. I don't think I unlocked anything for Titus because he's too busy moving himself back, but the important part is gotten. So coming back here, going into the fight, I was more hopeful that the extra damage would be enough to handle the Sin Spawn. I was still worried about the Piranhas though, because they did so much damage. But I started off with haste on either myself or Waka. I don't remember which one. It was myself, okay. And then I most likely waited on Waka. Yep, I waited on Waka so that I could lance it with Titus to get the extra MP. And this is when I definitely tried to remember the strategy. And then I hasted Waka so that we are both hasted and we're both ready to go. You can see just how much damage those Piranhas are doing if you're not defending, and it's a lot all at once. I do make sure to do my cheers to lower the amount of damage I take, and in the meantime, I just have Waka focus on the Sin Spawn to do as much damage as he can to it. Blender, I'm pretty sure one of them was defending, so it ignores the defend status as well. So I don't think I bother defending with it anymore, other than when on the turns I know Piranha is attacking. But I start focusing on the Sin Spawn first. Apparently I do defend with this Blender here, and you can see how dangerously low Titus gets. And I think this is about when I shifted my focus to the Piranhas, and I think I, on the spot, just made a strategy to take out 3 out of 4 of them to really mitigate the damage that they do. And I will just lance it with both Titus and Waka, I think, until 3 of the Piranhas are dead, and then spend a couple turns lancing the Sun Spawn. It really jugged the fight out, but it was the only way I could keep both of them alive. I ended up speeding up here just for everybody's sake, including my own, to try to speed up. And you can see how low Titus got again. He was down to 2 HP. I don't even know how he lived through this fight, but he did somehow. He slowly gained more HP and got himself back up to a decent amount. I think this fight went on for more than 20 minutes before I finally managed to beat it, just because of how little damage I got to do at it so infrequently, because I'd only get like maybe 2 or 3 lancets at a time on the Sin Spawn itself, I think, before the Piranhas reappeared. And it was such a long fight, and I was dreading this one when I got on the boat, because I knew this one wasn't going to be fun. I was thinking the problem would be the drain touch, but the problem actually ended up being the piranhas, just doing too much damage. But I do eventually get the victory over it. It just takes a while. As you can see here, we're nearing the end of the fight, and I managed to get Titus back up to a reasonable amount of HP. He didn't nearly have a close call like he did. But after a really, really long fight, like I said, like over 20 minutes, I don't even know how long exactly it was, especially because the times 4 speed up at the end there. But I will definitely be more prepared for the next underwater fight. Which will be, I think, in the Moonflow. But I'll definitely have something for Titus then, because I do not want to deal with this all over. Also, the one major disadvantage to that initial grind was Titus is actually ahead in sphere levels, so he doesn't get them as frequently as everybody else does right now. Which kind of sucks, because I really need him to move, but I won't be able to. Sen attacks Kilika, unfortunately. Everybody's a little sad about it, but not me. I've got things to do, Blitzball games to see. So yeah. I'm really curious how he has the swirling planks above him, but the water underneath of him is like perfectly calm. It's just a weird subtle detail you don't really think about until you're just watching it. And then obviously, people died, so Yuna has to dance now on their corpses. I don't really know why this is a thing, why she has to be on them. Why can't she just be like on the shore and and do it from there? Again, everybody's sad. I'm not. I got Blitzball games to see him play. But yeah.
Huh?
I want to ask you to be my guardian.
What?
I like how she randomly asks Titus to be her guardian, and Waka just reacts like she just used an Albed Machina, and I don't understand why. But anyways, we enter the tutorial for Kamari for Lancet. Fortunately, this is the one tutorial that is, besides Lulu's, that is actually legal in this challenge. Once that's complete, Lulu's fire actually just takes it out very quickly. It's crazy. I did get Yuna Lancet at some point, and she does a lot of Lancet damage. Considering she doesn't know any black magic or anything yet, you can see her high magic stat really shine here. And with elemental weakness, Lulu does a lot of damage. And then I went ahead and got Lancet for Lulu as well, for MP recovery. And then I decide I'm going to take on O2. And this fight I didn't think would be difficult. I was worried about the poison that it would inflict occasionally. But looking at its health, knowing I do about 300 damage, 360 damage apiece, I figured Lulu's fire could be pretty good. And with Yuna there to heal, I didn't think it'd be that bad. And obviously, everybody can heal themselves with Lancet anyways, should somebody run out of MP. So I figured this fight would be easy and I'd have it in the bag. I did switch in Titus here to cast Haste on Lulu especially, because she'll be the main damage dealer in this fight with her fire spells. And I do try to remember to not lance it until Titus casts Haste. That way he can get his MP back. Unfortunately for a lot of this fight, Lulu, not Lulu, wow, I can't think today. Yuna has a hard time keeping up with this fight, just specifically because of all the poison claws. She's either healing constantly, or she's casting Esuna, which really just hampers how much Lancet she can do. The haste on Lulu really speed rolls this fight until now. Whenever Ochu falls asleep, he just, at this point, he heals too much, too quickly. When he's earning that back every turn, and I think sometimes they end up healing more than Lulu's own fire. It's hard. Like there, it healed more than Lulu could do, but at this point, I felt like I had to wake it up. So I ended up waking it up with Yuna, casting Esuna on it. And unfortunately, that just leads to a bigger problem. And that bigger problem, unfortunately, is this move, Earthquake, which in and of itself isn't bad. It does do a lot of damage to the entire party. And then unfortunately, in this scenario, Lulu got hit with a Poison Claw right after, and no matter what I do here, Lulu will die. So I end up just spending her last turn, I believe, just doing fire. I probably could have Lanceted, thinking back, but I just didn't for whatever reason. So at this point, we've lost our main damage dealer, and he's still got like 1200 health. You can see there, Kimahri, after getting hit with the Poison Claw and taking the poison damage is more than what Kimahri can recover on his own with Lancet. So if Yuna goes down, there's no way that Kimahri can keep up with even just the poison damage. And unfortunately, Water here ends up taking them out, leaving just Yuna, and she doesn't last much longer. And she unfortunately gets stuck in this vicious cycle of getting poison clawed like almost every turn and getting poisoned. And she can't take the time to heal. And she has to spend every turn trying to get rid of this poison. And then eventually this water just comes through. He did get pretty low. He got to about 700 HP, I believe. But it was just too much all at once for him. So going into the next attempt, I made sure to immediately swap in Titus, and I made sure to remember to cast Haste and then lance it with Titus. I start out with the fires on Lulu like normal. I just have Kamari defend here. He's poisoned, but that's fine. I just keep going with Lulu, just casting more fires. And then when Titus's turn comes back around, he ends up using a lancet himself to get the MP. And I go ahead and just swap Kamari out here to reduce the poison damage. And I think I just have Yuna guard here. Or scan. I honestly couldn't remember. And I don't think I had the far plane editor open to do this naturally. So I think this is when I learned that it will retaliate every time with Earthquake if you wake it up. So I make sure to plan around that at this point. But you can see here, I finally get Titus's turn to come back around. I keep casting spells with Lulu, like I have been. Yuna's healing, or at least she would. But then I decide, for whatever reason, to bring Kamari back in. And in hindsight, it probably would have been easier and better to just cast Haste on Yuna with her higher magic stat to lance it more. But for some reason I didn't. And then I end up switching and healing Titus just in case I need him later. And again, Lulu is still just going off with fire. I just now remembered why I swapped it. I guess I remember in the first fight that I could lance it a second time with Titus, so I was able to sneak out another haste onto Yuna, so now all three of the main party will be hasted. And at this point, with everybody's extra agility, the fight is just too easy. They're all doing too much damage, and even when he does go to sleep, he can't out-heal the damage that's being done. I also definitely spend this time while he's asleep just getting everybody's HP back up that needs it. So like Kamari, for example. I'm waiting a lot for Titus's turn to come back around so that she can heal Kamari. It just takes forever for his turn to come back around. I don't really know why, because he has high agility for this point in the game. But I cure that status with Yuna, and everybody just goes out and attacking him between lancets and, I believe, fires. I don't think I ever really switched off of Lulu's. At this point, I decide to go ahead and wake it up with Yuna, just because everybody is at really healthy amount of HP, so there's no point to sit here and try to fight against its regen status. Fortunately, and unfortunately, Lulu is almost stuck in the exact same combo again. But I do realize I could Lancet here, and the Lancet is enough to counter the poison, and then I can use Esuna with Yuna here to cure that. I think from here, it's just the same grind pretty much, just everybody trying to keep their own health up where Yuna tries to heal them. but all in all, it's just the same grind as before he went to sleep, so it's not that bad at this point. And since he's already gone to sleep once, this is pretty much how the rest of the fight goes. It's not much of a problem. And I finally get to the point where I'm killing him. And Lulu, actually no, Yuna gets the last hit off. But this fight's finally complete. It's just really long. I mean, once I realized to think about it, it wasn't that bad. I do get a really nice MP sphere here though, which I do hold on to for later. And then we get a useless Belladonna wand. But after that fight, I moved Yuna closer to the Black Mage level 1 spells. After careful consideration, I moved Kamari to the Cure and Esena nodes. That way I can have another healer. And for Titus, my first plan is just to get him back to the center. We move on to our first actual real battle that isn't scripted in any way. And honestly, I have no worries about this in Kilika, especially after O2. O2 is probably the hardest thing in this entire part of the game. But you'll see here, this fight wasn't hard. It really didn't take me that long. It was just getting everything set up. For whatever reason, my party was swapped around.
Anyone thirsty?
Make way!
I think some of this swapping was just because AP sharing wasn't on. But at this point in the game in Kilika, you can really see the magic-resistant enemies. They start to become a bit more frequent, and then this is our big, I wouldn't say roadblock, but it's our first big realization in the playthrough that some enemies will inflict silence, and that is the worst thing that can happen in this playthrough, which pushes me even more to get Kamari to the White Mage nodes. That way we can have somebody else healing statuses, just in case. In this scenario, Yuna was the one that was silenced, so now if anybody else got silenced, then nobody else would be able to cure it. I don't really have any plans for Lulu or Waka yet in these sphere upgrades. I believe I moved them onto the Lancet. I moved Lulu onto the Lancet node especially to get the magic +2, and that was probably my idea of Waka as well. This is the next actual fight in Kilika that we have, and it's just missing the elemental. So honestly, I just skipped through the end of this fight because I already did that other one. This one will be fine with no worries. I move Kamari closer to the White Mage grids and Yuna closer to Blizzard to actually activate it. So now she has a spell that she can use. And now we head on to, I don't even know how to say his name. Sinspawn Jinu? I have no idea, but he's being called Sinspawn now. I don't know why every Sinspawn in this game has the most weird and absurd name. My only worry going into this fight was the poison he could inflict on the party, and would it be too much for me to heal against? I had hope that Lulu would be very helpful here between taking it down the tentacles and busting through the shell for the Sinspawn. Unfortunately, this fight wasn't really that hard. I did at some point accidentally swap targets, probably here with Lulu, so I meant to focus on the same one so we could kill it quicker. But, you know, whatever. But you can see here, even at the beginning of the game with like no stat upgrades, magic only is not that difficult. Psi does come out here, but it doesn't really do much damage against everybody, and I'm not really worried about it. So I keep on focusing on this other tentacle and get it down. And at this point, I'm remembering my tactic of not casting Lancet on the enemy. So I switch to Titus, I cast Haste on Lulu, and then I spend Titus's next turn casting Lancet so he can haste. I believe it was Kamari, but I'll find out here in a second. Fortunately, this strategy doesn't have to become a major problem in the future, well, especially once Titus gets some MP nodes, which I've heavily considered activating the one I got just for him, but I haven't yet. We very quickly and easily get through the first phase of this fight and get him to come out of his shell, which doesn't really make too much of a difference. He only gets like 2 new moves, and they're not really anything to be worried about. So I keep on doing the same patterns I have been doing. Venom does come out here and hit Kamari pretty decently and poison him, which forces me to bring Yuna back in from Titus, actually, to heal that poison damage. That way he's not taking the extra damage. But for whatever reason here, I just did Lancet instead, so Kamari took extra damage for no reason. And he didn't really need to, but it's fine, because his Lancet can offset a lot of it. Close to half of it. But on Yuna's next turn, I do go through and cure that. That way he's not suffering from that ailment anymore. Other than the occasional having to heal the poison status, this fight really wasn't that difficult. O2 was so much harder than this one. And we're steamrolling against the Sun Spawn at this point. Especially with Lulu just hitting 350 damage apiece. We get through this fight pretty quickly, and it's kind of weird, the difficulty difference between O2 and Sunspawn. This is that other move that I was talking about, which doesn't really make a difference right now. But I do intentionally defend with everybody just so Lulu can get the critical fire off to kill it. But that's this fight in the bag, and it was, compared to O2, it was not difficult at all. This was such an easy fight, and I felt like it took close to the same amount of time as a normal Fiend fight. I like how Titus wheezes here, like he didn't do anything other than Lancet once and Haste twice. Yuna and Kamari does get a few points for the sphere levels. I think at this point it did have AP sharing enabled. Kamari, again, just moved him closer to the white mage stuff, and then Yuna moved closer to the black mage spells. I do grab the destruction sphere and the temple and Kilika. That way I can obtain the red armlet for Kamari, which could be beneficial later, especially certain fights with people whose name starts with S and ends with Emor, just because of the elemental resistances that he gets off of it. On the way back to outside of the forest, I do move Waka to get the magic +2. Yuna did end up learning fire. Kamari just moved closer to the white mage nodes. And Lulu got magic +2 as well, which for Waka, not really a difference for him right now, especially since he can't do anything. But for Lulu, that magic +2 is a pretty decent improvement. I do give all of my gil here to Awaka, because he's a good lad, and he deserves it.
I'll make it up to you.
And lastly, for our little trip, since getting on the boat, I do decide to go ahead and resolve all of my daddy issues and get the check shot. I really wanted that glass of milk, and when he left to go get it, he just didn't come back. So I got mad and I kind of kicked the ball like really, really hard, and everybody gets jealous of that. And I'm proud because I kicked it that hard, especially considering my not so
The
great
best.
physical
Yeah,
prowess.
right.
Whoa!
And
What's
now
that
that
called?
Titus has come this far
Doesn't have a
and
name.
resolved his
Anyone can
abandonment
do it if they
issues,
try.
he will
Show
head to
us
bed
one more
one last
time,
night
yeah?
before arriving in Luca for his next set of adventures and challenges. Thanks so much for watching, guys. If you like the video or you want to see more of this challenge run as it's uploaded, hit that like button and subscribe. If you think I could have done one boss fight better, let me know in the comments. I'm curious to see how you would have handled a scenario differently than me. But again, thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next video.